Inside S4, there was reportedly a chamber built for one purpose only: to keep a non-human being alive long enough for scientists to study it. That chamber was called the Clean Sphere, and Dan Burisch says that when he entered it, he was standing in front of J-Rod, a being whose condition was so fragile that every interaction had to be controlled. Imagine the sheer logistical terror of that mandate. We are talking about a military apparatus programmed to classify, weaponize, or destroy, suddenly forced to act as a highly specialized intensive care unit for a biology it barely comprehended. The Clean Sphere was a marvel of desperation. It was a pressurized bubble filled with synthetic atmospheres, massive environmental monitoring rigs, and a constant, suffocating anxiety. The scientists operating the machinery knew the stakes intimately. If the being died, the greatest scientific and historical prize ever captured by humanity died with it. Every breath the creature took was watched. Every fluctuation in its vital signs sent ripples of panic through the chain of command. Then comes the reversal. The story is not that the government captured something it feared. The stranger possibility is that they captured something they needed, something they could not afford to lose, something they had to protect, even if protecting it meant building a hidden world around it. And that is why this story still holds attention. It sits at the exact point where science, secrecy, and human fear start to blur. The Clean Sphere is not just a bizarre detail. It is the key that makes the entire J-Rod story feel too specific to ignore. This is not just another Area 51 story. It is a story about what happens when secrecy stops being about hiding a weapon and starts becoming a way of keeping a fragile life alive. It prompts a difficult question. What happens to empathy when an intelligent, suffering creature is treated strictly as a biological asset in a black-budget program? This narrative reveals that the ultimate secret wasn't technology, but a desperate classified medical ward.
Official history began in 1953 with early Air Force UFO probes. While the public saw weather balloons and Project Blue Book briefings, a different reality was being built underground. Military intelligence was carving into remote mountains, investing millions in containment protocols and heavy security. This hidden infrastructure was designed for panic and preservation. But the story you are about to hear lives in the shadows beside that record. In Dan Burisch's account, he was approached in 1986 while working in a microbiology lab. He says 3 men walked in, asked questions, reviewed his background, and eventually pulled him into a classified world that led first to Groom Lake and then to the site known as S4. The transition was jarring. One day, Burisch studied conventional cells. The next, he was escorted through a subterranean maze, bound by NDAs that effectively erased his civilian identity. He was handed a responsibility that defied logic. That matters because S4 is not presented as a rumor in a vacuum. In Burisch's testimony, it is a place with levels, protocols, pressurized access, and a chamber built around one living being. Not a warehouse, not a hangar. A controlled environment for a body that could not survive normal conditions. By the early 90s, Burisch was analyzing materials suggesting severe nerve damage and biological decay. He wasn't there to interrogate a prisoner, but to keep something alive. The stakes were crushing. This wasn't a robust invader, but a patient in profound decline. Scientists walked a tightrope, knowing any error could kill the very entity the government was desperate to save. The being J-Rod was reportedly 3.5 feet tall, with a large head, dark skin, and a body so weak he could barely support himself. Burisch was told the name was a code, not a species label. Burisch describes entering the Clean Sphere through rigorous pressurization and suit checks. Inside, J-Rod reportedly communicated telepathically, more directly than observers realized. The tension is clear. If this were just research, why the secrecy? If just a captive, why the intensive medical care? The specificity of these details makes the story difficult to ignore. The story changes shape when Burisch describes what J-Rod was really supposed to be. Not just an alien from somewhere else, but a being linked to a future version of humanity, a branch of our own species pushed forward by time and catastrophe. In that version of the story, the Greys are not strangers. They are descendants. The distance is not only space, it is history. Imagine standing on the other side of that thick glass and realizing that you are not looking at a conqueror from the stars. You are looking at a mirror. You are looking at the tragic, exhausted result of human history played out over thousands of years of survival. The Greys in this framework were survivors of a cataclysm we have not even faced yet. They came back not to invade, but to heal. They needed our pristine genetics to repair their decaying DNA. This revelation completely shatters the traditional alien narrative. It replaces the fear of the unknown with a profound, terrifying grief for our own lineage. That is a huge shift because it changes the emotional center of the story. The chamber is no longer just holding something unknown. It may be holding something familiar that has been damaged by the long road back to us. The science in the testimony becomes part of the drama. Nerve damage, genetic loss, extraordinary biology, and the possibility that the knowledge inside that room is about our own future, as much as it is about an alien past. Burisch also describes a specific moment that gives the whole account its force. While extracting tissue samples from J-Rod, he says the being made physical contact with his unprotected hand. What followed, in his telling, was not a dramatic attack. It was a transfer, a flood of feeling, memory, and presence. The kind of moment that leaves a witness unable to file the experience away as ordinary. That scene is the center of the story, not a blast, not a chase. A hand through the edge of a controlled chamber, in a hidden facility, between a scientist and a being whose life was slowly draining away. Burisch says the samples numbered nearly 300 over time, and that the work inside the chamber was part treatment, part diagnosis, part survival effort. Consider the vulnerability. A human in a hazard suit feeling the touch of a traveler from across time. It was an unfiltered transfer of loneliness. Burisch was no longer just collecting data. He was a witness to agony. He also says that the creature was not treated with dignity. He says J-Rod wanted clothing and was refused. He says J-Rod called himself captive. He says the being could not fully stand because of muscular atrophy and nerve damage. If you take the testimony at face value, the horror of the room is not that something monstrous was inside. It is that something intelligent and dying was being managed under fluorescent control. The bureaucracy saw J-Rod as property, a biological hard drive for advanced tech. The true chill of S4 is this institutional indifference, building the world's most expensive prison to squeeze a dying traveler for data. And this is where the story earns its title. The government was not just hiding a secret, it was maintaining a life. That changes the moral weight completely. A secret weapon is one thing. A secret rescue is something else. A secret witness is even stranger. Burisch says the project eventually moved toward larger questions, including time travel, the doctrine of convergent timeline paradox, and a system he links to Looking Glass and Project Aquarius. He also says there were attempts to understand where J-Rod had come from, how the craft worked, and why the entire operation mattered so much to the people running it. The people running these extreme initiatives were not necessarily acting out of pure malice. They were acting out of a deeply human, deeply flawed panic. They believed they were holding the absolute key to averting a future global disaster, and they were willing to sacrifice the dignity of the messenger to get it. They compartmentalized their empathy. They traded their basic humanity for the illusion of total security. Outside the testimony, the story split the UFO world. Some people treated it as one of the most detailed insider accounts ever told. Others treated it as disinformation or fantasy. There is no official confirmation of S4, no public file proving the chamber, and no government document that plainly admits a living non-human entity was ever kept alive there. Web archives. Still, the story persists because it is built from details, not just claims. The levels, the suits, the slides, the pressurization, the clean sphere. The idea that something was being protected because it was useful, fragile, and dangerous to the people who held it. That is a powerful shape for a story, whether you believe every word or not. The real question is not only whether J-Rod existed, the real question is what it means when a government, if the testimony is true, keeps a dying being alive in a hidden room and treats that survival like a state secret. Because if that happened, then the secret was never just about aliens. It was about us, what we fear, what we study, what we hide, and what we are willing to preserve when knowledge becomes too valuable to let die. We are forced to look at our own reflection in the glass of the clean sphere. It shows a species capable of incredible scientific achievement, yet entirely willing to lock its own dying descendants in a cage to extract their secrets. Subscribe for more stories where the truth is stranger than the legend, and the legend only gets interesting when the door finally opens.